Hello, welcome back everybody, back to Scottish Independence Podcasts. You'll have missed us last week because we did say we were going to have a little bit of a break after the election, which we have done, but we're back now. And this week's podcast is a follow-up to one we did a couple of weeks ago when we spoke to Liam Mosson, who's a young activist, and we gave it the slightly gruesome title of Election Autopsy, reflecting on the results and getting what I thought was really interesting, getting a young person's perspective on it. So that was it was very much how
I really enjoyed that chat. I mean, it's like I didn't agree with everything that Liam was saying, but actually agreed with a lot of it. And as you say, it's just really good to kind of listen to what someone of that young age, sorry Liam if you're listening, don't want to be patronizing here, but I mean, what early 20s is saying actually. And I really appreciated it. I'm really pleased that you came on to talk to us.
Yeah, it was good. And I mean, if anybody's missed it, we'll put the link in the notes, and you can, it's definitely worth watching. And you don't always agree with everything I say either.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and I don't even agree with everything I say, actually. Well, not the next day,
That's the beauty of debate.
Exactly. So
what we're going to do this time, we, in between speaking to Liam and that episode going out, there's been a lot of data and people analysing the results and coming up with their thoughts. Professor John Curtis has been regularly, I think Stevenson Institute did something very recently. So there's a lot of commentators around. We came across a survey group. It had been done by YouGov on behalf of a group called Persuasion UK, which we hadn't come across before. And it was a very, very in detail look at the results of the election across the UK. But there was 1,600, I think, Scottish.
Which is that's a decent sample. That's a very decent sample. Yeah.
And they looked at a lot of the underlying reasons for voting, reasons for choosing not to vote for particular parties. So we found it quite interesting, and we did have a little chat about it. So what we're going to share with you, is just the data that we found most interesting and just our reflections on what it might be telling us. And we did think that there is information in here that could be really useful, well, to any party, but particularly SNP and Greens. Let us know what you think. So this is part 2 of our election autopsy. Fieldwork was April to the 5th of May, so it's very relevant to the elections. The sample size, it was mainly England, obviously, but it was 1,600 Scots. So there is some relevance to us. What we don't know is how they've managed to come up with the figures when they're breaking down the parties in Scotland was a proportional election, but I don't know the answer to that. But let's just see what it tells us, and we'll see if it makes sense. I know you can't read that. This is just a very, very high-level overview of the results for the UK. And this is, of course, in England, largely their council. So the common thread was the collapse of the Labour vote. We kind of knew that. And also the rise of Reform consolidating. It says, even if Reform faced more opposition than last year, the fragmentation and lack of coordination of the anti-Reform vote in England remains a significant advantage for Reform. And that's what's putting them on course for power and the horrific thought of Nigel Farage as Prime Minister.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So across the UK, the Labour 2024 vote either stayed at home or voted for another party.
Wow.
That's quite interesting. And the disconnect is largely based on people's values and what they perceive to be the values of Labour. That's interesting, I think.
Have any of them discovered that Reform don't actually have any values yet?
Well, that does tend to come out in the data we're about to look at. There is something on that. And the other point, just on Labour, they have no clear sense of what the parties stand for. And they think that the Starmer's government is Tory light or more right-wing than they expected it to be.
Yeah.
I think we can relate to that as well.
I think we can all relate to Scotland. Scotland relates to that. Yeah.
Headline for Plaid Cymru, who, as we know, got the highest vote, they coalesced into energising the anti-reform tactical vote in Wales. And that makes sense because we know they're saying this isn't about Welsh independence, this is about keeping reform out. It was a significant part of their win. Now, here's where I don't think they've really understood Scottish politics necessarily. The SNP benefited from a large chunk of Labour 2024 switchers. Now, I would say that that it's actually, if they went back to 2024, that would actually be a large group of SNP switchers to Labour. That's how Labour won that 2024 election.
Yeah,
so I don't think it's quite as surprising as they seem to found it. They said voters in Scotland had a particularly low sense of what Scottish Labour stood for. Well, I think we would agree with that as well. But also the salience of pro-EU attitudes is underrated. So that's quite interesting as well.
Yeah, that is quite interesting. I mean, that's a big point, that salience that John Curtis has been talking about a lot, actually, over the last year or so. Yeah,
indeed.
Yeah, it's kind of the two things have come together, independence seeking and EU reference. Yeah.
And that makes sense. And then this other thing also makes sense, which is for reform, it's immigration asylum seekers. They're almost a single issue protest group. That is by far the biggest one. Tories, they're largely conservative target voters, also have concerns about competence of government. But the other thing that damages them, which is quite interesting, is the ideological extremity. Their proximity to Trump damages them with the wider population. That makes sense. Yeah. So
I mean, that kind of thing must have benefited the Lib Dems as well. Actually, obviously, Greens probably got benefited from dissatisfaction with Labour. I'm thinking about England. And, and the Lib Dems must have benefited to some extent with this dissatisfaction, kind of more rational dissatisfaction with the Tories. People would maybe go over to Lib Dems. I mean, that happens backwards and forwards in English politics, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's quite interesting, all of that. It's good.
As a scene setter, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there was a little bit more detail on this one.
Oh, wow.
I know, well, don't panic. Of people who voted in 2024, how they voted in 2026. And these are the Scottish figures. So, for example, the top line, 60% of people who voted Tory in 2024 also voted Tory in 2026. The largest chunk of them who went elsewhere went to Reform.
It's not a surprise, but it does tell you something about the makeup of Scottish Tories, doesn't it? And interesting that 7% of them went to Labour. I expect quite a few of them went to vote for Jackie Baillie.
and clearly Labour has become right-wing enough for them to appeal to them. Maybe that. Only 4% didn't vote, though, so they're still turning out, these Tories.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good.
Now, people who voted Labour in 2024 in Scotland, and we know that was a massive one because of all the MPs they got, only 42%, less than half of them voted Labour this time round.
Yeah.
And those votes that didn't go to Labour, 12% went to the Lib Dems, 20% went to SNP. Now, I would suggest that that's probably previous SNP voters who lent their vote to Labour for the general election. I think that might be what happened.
I'm surprised it's only 20%, really, given what such a massive swing over for the general election. However, I mean, that's fine. We don't quite know how they've worked these out, as you've said. Right, who's next? Lib Dems?
So, well, I was just going to point out 14% of those Labour voters went Reform, which I think would be a shock. Lib Dems, 64%, still Lib Dems. Of the switchers, it was SNP who benefited by 13% of what was quite a small number.
Yeah.
The SNP, 89% of the SNP voters in 2024 stayed SNP. So that's, I think they would take some comfort from that.
Yeah.
4% went to Reform, which is surprising.
Oh, there's nothing so queer as folk, really. It's quite, really.
And a tiny number are shown as going green, which makes me think this is perhaps based on the constituency vote rather than our list vote.
Could be. That was one question you had from these, wasn't it? You didn't quite know what the base was. That would make sense, because I think that would be much more. Well, I suppose it's switching, but anyway, we don't know. We don't know.
But if you look at the Greens, hop over Reform for now and look at the Greens line. This is showing that 63% of people who voted Green in 2024 went SNP. Now, that's probably because it was SNP on the constituents, because they didn't have a lot of constituencies didn't have a Green candidate.
Exactly. I think that's pretty well kind of backs up that supposition. Yeah. Okay.
So if we go back up one to Reform UK, from the 2024 general election, 74% of them have stayed with Reform UK, although the number would be.
Well, I think this is a tricky one, because we need to make that point. We're talking percentages, we're not talking absolute numbers, because in Reform 2024, I mean, there were some candidates up here, but I don't think they had a candidate in every constituency. And, you know, we were much more against Reform even 2 years back. So I think that's a tricky one to make any sense of.
It is, and I think perhaps what that picture as a whole shows is that the ones who were already Reform, 74% of them stayed Reform. The ones that were Tory before, 24% of them are now Reform. 14% of Labour are now Reform. So they're gaining something from all the parties, including 4% from the SNP.
I think that bottom line is also interesting, because that did not vote. So actually, of the people who didn't vote in the general election, most of them have voted, or at least of the ones that sampled, actually they have come back out and voted. And I mean, isn't that interesting?
It is
a lot mostly for SNP, but some also for Reform. I think that's interesting, because we need to get people out voting. I mean, it wasn't too bad a turnout for Holyrood, but it wasn't good. It wasn't great.
But what it shows maybe is that 29%, that 29% that voted SNP, they were the ones who didn't turn out in 2024 general election.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And 15% of people who didn't vote last time were motivated to get out and vote Reform. 32% still weren't going to vote. So I think that is quite an interesting overview.
Yeah.
Now, this is the top issues for voters per party.
Okay.
Again, it's quite hard to read, but
quite hard to read. In fact, impossible. You'll have to talk us through it.
I'll read it out. I'll talk us through it. So the question was, which of the following is most likely to shape your vote at the local elections? And bearing in mind, this was just before the election took place. So it's the top 5 issues facing each voter group coming into the elections in Scotland. So all Scottish voters, the highest issue was the cost of living on 45%, followed by the NHS, followed by immigration or stroke asylum at 25%, followed by the UK-EU relationship, and then 18% Scotland's constitutions. But when you break it down to people who were intending to vote SNP in 2026, they were 50% for the cost of living, and the second highest rated one was the UK-EU relationship. So that's Europe, and the EU is the second highest issue for SNP voters. And then the Constitution, is third, and then the NHS, and then environment. Nowhere does immigration and asylum isn't in their top 5
And I mean, the whole thing about, the EU and then the Constitution, I mean, I would find, if I'd been asked that, I suppose I would have put it the other way around, in Constitution first and then the EU, but in my mind, they are the same. They're the kind of asking me the same question.
Yeah. To me, the Constitution isn't an issue in itself. It's the means by which you address these other issues. It's not a what, it's a how. So the cost of living I think, well, what we need to solve that is independence. It's the
Yeah,
thing that
okay,
unlocks things. But
yeah.
that's in my mind, and it might be
Actually, that's a good point to make. I mean, and to some extent, also applies to the EU, because that would just kind of help the whole kind of economic side of it. Well, there's other things. There's lots of other things with the EU, and both of them. But that's a good point.
For Labour voters in 2026 in Scotland, by far the biggest was the NHS on 57%. And if you think of Sarwar standing up week after week in Holyrood at First Minister's questions and hammering the NHS, hammering the hospitals, hammering the SNP's record, that's not surprising.
Yeah, and the BBC doing the same thing.
And the BBC doing the same thing. Followed by the cost of living, followed by education, and then in fourth place was the EU, UK, and then immigration for Labour voters is the fifth. Reform, as you would expect, they are very different profile. They're 75.
I'm going to guess that their first one is about immigration, and
how very astute of you, Marlene.
Do I get a prize? Can I get a prize? Yeah, okay.
You do. You get the prize of not having to vote for them. 75%, that is their top issue, which again makes reform a single issue protest group, not a party. The second one was cost of living. The third one was the future of the North Sea. Now, when you think of the people who run reform, the millionaires, on behalf of the billionaires, maybe that's why they're so fixated on the North Sea, because that's where they think they want to they'll get money from.
And that kind of thing about, Trump's drill stuff is also part of the kind of big overlap that is between reform thinking and Trump stuff in the States. So it's part and parcel of the same kind of current of thinking, isn't it?
It is very much so. And then they've got the NHS in there, and then tax makes its first appearance, because of course we know that reform voters don't want to pay tax. They want to keep their millions.
Yeah, well, not the voters don't have millions, but they seem to be prepared to hand it off to the rest of them. Okay, so who's next?
Who's next? The Lib Dems. NHS is the top one there. Cost of living, EU, UK. You mentioned that they'd be interested. So funnily enough, the fourth one is immigration asylum, and the fifth one, education. The Tories is exactly the same, nearly, as reform. Their top one is NHS, but then it's cost of living, then it's the future of the North Sea, then it's immigration asylum, then it's tax. So other than having NHS and immigration asylum switched around, it's the same issues.
What I noticed also about that Conservative column is that it's much more equal. I mean, it does taper off a bit, but nothing like the same extent as the other parties, doesn't it? They're more they're more equal. They're more kind of equal all the way down.
That's very true. Yes, they are. So this next one, the second last column, is Labour defectors, or people who voted Labour in 2024 and defected in 2026. It is. Cost of living, 50% of them, the NHS, then immigration asylum, then the EU, and then Scotland's constitution. Now, I suspect, again, that quite a few of those were originally SNP voters, which is maybe why the constitution appears. And then the last column is new reform voters. So this is people who voted reform in 2026, but not in 2024, which is a fascinating
that's
group
interesting
to look at. 71% is, have a guess?
It'll be the European Union. Constitution. No, ferries. It will be ferries. No. Actually, we haven't had ferries in this at all. That's really weird.
We haven't had ferries.
Okay, it must be boat people and immigration
asylum. It's all those small boats arriving in Broughty Ferry, as we know. And we'll just say here, the only small boats causing me a problem belong to Malcolm Offord. So, cost of living is their next one. Future of the North Sea, again. The NHS at 30%, defence and security is 18%. That's the only time that's appeared in the top 10.
It's there,
Isn't it? If you stir up fear of being under attack, whether it's by warmongering, and when you think the amount of focus has been by Starmer on ramping up weapons. We've got the Iran war. And you're also afraid of people arriving on your shores in boats. The whole thing just sort of coalesces into fear of not being able to defend yourself, maybe.
It's interesting. Just remind me, whereabouts is the North Sea in that column, that last column? Was it number 3?
It's number 3.
I'm just thinking of North East Scotland and that one constituency that SNP won, but by a squeak, really.
Oh, Karen Adams,
Yeah, it was Karen Adams. And even, and up in Aberdeen city as well. I mean, I think that's an interesting one because it does kind of point the SNP to you need to be careful about your message and getting it across. And actually, another thing that came to mind was how Stephen Flynn, in his speech on acceptance speech, having won up there, was talking about how he'd be an advocate for the North Sea and I'm not sure if he mentioned transition. He should have if he didn't. But so I think that's interesting.
That's
intriguing. Yeah, I just think that's intriguing.
Because he's talking the language of the people who they wouldn't normally vote for. Interesting. Right. Okay. That's one for us to dig under a bit further on. And actually the bottom one there, and this doesn't appear anywhere else, political corruption, 17%. So people are joining Reform because of political corruption. Or possibly they're joining it in order to have some. I don't know.
It's interesting, isn't it? I suppose it's what happens when you dig down far enough into stats like this. You come up with some pretty weird and wonderful kind of things coming out of it. I am really disappointed that ferries did not appear anywhere.
Yeah, they probably did appear, but maybe not in the top 5 of any of them. But the other thing that it maybe suggests, for the Scottish government, they need to get hold of the narrative on asylum and immigration, because that's the things that's driving this hugely. That's what's driving Reform, and they do have positive things to say about it.
That was quite interesting.
Now this is values, and this is interesting. It took me a little while to get the hang of this, not least because the colours they use do not correspond to party colours, so just bear with me. So this is a scale going from, if you see at the bottom, 1 to 10. Number 1 is the most progressive views, so left wing. Number 10 is the most right wing views. So this has taken 5 issues, and this is voters placing themselves on the scale as to where they think they are. Take the top line. This is independence for Scotland. On the one is number 1. And compared with staying in the UK with fewer powers, which is number 10. Now, if you look across that top line, the green one, the people who are most independence rather than subsumed within the UK, is not surprisingly the SNP.
What are they there as green?
They're there as green.
That's really bad. It's really unhelpful. Bad. Okay, thank you for explaining. I was trying to work out why green would be way over to the left and the SNP seemed to be much further over to the right.
That's why you need to just walk through it. So the SNP is the most left wing on that one. We want independence, followed by the red dot, which means the Green Party.
YouGov, get it, honestly.
Not a surprise once we work it out, but this surprised me. The black dot to slightly to the right of the middle line is all voters. So
that's the interesting one to take out of this.
It is interesting, and when we get on to do the yes/no split again, that is also interesting.
I think maybe the interesting thing for this is where that black dot goes.
Yes, that is the interesting thing. So, and then on the other side, just in order of going more and more right wing, what is interesting is it's followed by the Lib Dems, who for a progressive party are not very progressive, followed by Labour, which is orange in this one, followed by Reform. Those are not a million miles away, those 3 groups. And then the Tories are way out on the right. So Reform aren't as anti-independence as if you look at the next one down, again, these are 2 paired statements. So on the one hand, you've got immigration has benefited society. That's down at the number 1 end. Whereas number 10, immigration has undermined society. And again, looking at that black dot, it's slightly more in the immigration has undermined society.
It's not too far over, though, is it?
It's not too far over.
Just going by the colours again, right? So the ones that we're interested in is the red and green. So that's
the
Green Party and the SNP, and they're all of them, both of them rather, they're well down to the progressive side, except for the third question, and I can't read what the third question is, but I noticed that everyone's much closer on that.
Yes. Okay. Well, the third question is about disruption. Is it that on the one hand, our institutions work okay, we should protect them, nobody's plump for that, or our institutions need radical overhaul? So, of course, that's everybody's in the same place, thinking things could be better than they are now. They need to be fixed. And reform is way to the right of that, going, burn it all down.
That's interesting, isn't it? I wonder what's behind that.
Well, I suppose that it is things like, does the NHS work as well as it could? And we keep hearing about how terrible education is, those kind of things. And then law and order. I mean, it depends what people mean.
Yeah, I was thinking also voting systems, but that might not come into it so much because we're up here in Scotland and it's proportional. But yeah. Interesting, that one.
It is. Now, the next question, again, this is split. There isn't a black dot on this one, but the right-wing half is clearly Reform and the Tories, and everybody else is in the left-wing half. And the left-wing half is inequality is too high, we should redistribute income.
Yeah.
And, of course, the two Tories, they should reduce taxes on the richest.
Yeah.
So
what colour is Labour? Is Labour... Orange.
Labour is orange, so they're the least worried. That's changed days.
Yeah. Changed days from when you and I used to vote for them.
Yeah, exactly. And even the Lib Dems are more progressive than Labour on that point. So that it should, if you were a Labour policymaker, that should really give you pause for thought. And then the last one is to do with the EU. So the left-hand side and the black dot are all on the rejoin the EU half. Not a surprise to us. The two that aren't is, again, not a surprise. It's the Tories, but Reform more against it than the Tories.
Yeah.
So that was extremely complicated to work through because of the colours.
I know.
But I think it's quite interesting in what it's told us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially those top two. It surprised me that those top two all voter averages were on the right wing side of the line.
I'd quite like to know what the values of the people who didn't vote were, but that might be trickier for pollsters to find out. Yeah. Anyway, wow, that is intriguing.
It is, and I've got some even more intrigue. Top 10 reasons for voting SNP. They don't have a green equivalent, unfortunately, but number one reason, they want Scotland to rejoin the European Union.
So what's the difference between the yellow and the pink?
Right, the yellow is people who voted SNP in 2024 and 2026. The pink is people who voted Labour in 2024 and SNP in 2026, who they describe as defectors, but I would say are probably largely returners.
Now. Yeah, I think that's true. Interesting, though, because it's a bit of a different shape.
Slightly different, right. So let's go through and just pick. We don't need to go through them all, but the top one is the EU. And in fact, it's, they're pretty much the same. It's very popular support for that. The second one, which is less in the SNP defector column, is they're the only credible route to Scottish independence. So that people who were willing to go to Labour in 2024 and then came back to SNP in 2026, maybe independence is less of, important to them.
Yeah.
The third one is their record of delivery in government. That's a reason to vote for them. So that's the positive. 30% said that, and things like free tuition, bus travel, the baby box, etc. And then the fourth one is, I don't want Labour, the Tory or Reform running Scotland. So 29% of people, that was their main reason.
Well, I mean, what was the Labour figure for that, the returners?
24% against 29%.
Why did they go and vote Labour?
The next one, SNP is the only major party that puts Scotland's interests first. And again, that's a bigger line for the SNP double voters. It's a shorter line for the people who are willing to go to Labour and come back. So perhaps they're less convinced of that one. And then once you get further down to the smaller numbers, the SNP picked up votes from people whose progressive socio-democratic values align with mine. They're the party best placed to keep reform out. The policies are closer to my own. That's sort of a similar kind of...
Okay, so those two, in the bottom half of that graph, on the pink side, the two that stand out from Labour's, what are they for?
The party best placed to keep Reform UK out of Holyrood, 15% of SNP, that was their reason to vote, 31% of the former Labour voters. And then the other one that's further out is they're the best of a bad bunch, was 14% SNP and 30% Labour. So
oh dear.
That's your sort of slightly less convinced SNP voters, I would say, in the pink column. Yeah. And then just one more on John Swinney is the best leader on offer. 9% of the SNP voted because of John Swinney's leadership. That's quite low, I would have thought.
I don't think so. That's not how. I mean, do you really vote because of a leader? I mean, if you're convinced about policies, the leader's not that. I mean, could be. I mean, okay, it's a factor, but it's not a huge factor, is it? Doesn't you?
For 9% of the 1,600 people, that was the top reasons, and 10% of the pink ones. So compare that then with the reasons people voted Reform.
Are these the same reasons?
Well, no, because the green column, the turquoise column, is people who voted Reform last time and this time. Purple column is people who voted Labour in 2024 and then switched to
pretty much
Reform.
The same, isn't it?
So number one for both of them, to take a tougher approach to immigration and asylum. That's why they voted.
Okay.
So we wondered in our conversation with Liam how many people it was just a protest vote and how much was it an actual anti-migration stroke racist vote. More than we think. That's 70%. That was their reason. 50%.
Well, it's also worrying. It's not as if there's all sorts of ways you can debunk that, can you, in terms of, from a Scottish point of view. That's come about because actually, you know, say what you like about them, but Reform are very, very good at putting a message over. And the fact that it's a dishonest message is neither here nor there because they get it over.
Yeah. And if you think about the anti-asylum protests at hotels and things, that's had a lot of publicity as much as anything else. But the next one, this is their unionist credentials coming through, to stand up for British values and ordinary British people. Now, I don't even know what British values are anymore, and I certainly don't feel that
I think you could ask Mr. Starmer. He's always going on about British values as well.
And it infuriates me whenever somebody says that word and expects me to feel included in it. And then the next one, it's time for a change. They just want things different.
Okay, carry on.
The next one's to get rid of the SNP and to get them out of government in Scotland. So it's an anti-SNP vote there, number 4. Then number 5, to scrap net zero and the whole green agenda. And then 18% of them, they're saying things other politicians are too afraid to say. I would link that with the racist rhetoric around migration, actually. It's all, you can see the pattern here. And then to shake up the political system and send a message to the other parties. Again, that's just sort of throw it up and burn it. Reform would cut taxes and reduce government spending. Well, who does that benefit, I wonder? The millionaires, not the poor folk.
This is reminding me of something that I either read or saw on TV recently, and the trouble is, of course, I can't remember who said it or where it was. Anyway, I do remember what was said, and that was that the person was just pointing out that it was reasons for voting and saying that, in particular with respect to Reform, that people's reasons for voting aren't to do with actually laid out policies. They're just they're just opinions. They're just statements that people can't latch onto, and then that pushes them towards actually voting for them. But it's not like what politics used to be, which was about policy. and, you know, reasons for doing it. It's about emotion. It's about
It's the
opinion
Brexit
and
bus,
emotion
isn't it?
and rhetoric. It's emotional rhetoric that gets people to vote for them, and that's what I find actually a bit scary, because that's definitely what's happened. I'm pointing that way as if that's where America is, but you know what I mean. That's what's happened in the States. It's emotional rhetoric. Most of it, some of it's out and out lies. Most of it is not factually true. It's all spun, and yet that list of reasons to vote for reform, it's mostly the same thing.
Yeah,
Emotional
indeed.
rhetoric.
It's exactly it. And if you were in the Scottish government considering that, stop putting out 96-page manifestos and start putting out 5 pictures, you know, might be to think about the messaging. And when you think, you know, we're in the days of Instagram, that's just a picture. We're in TikTok, that's just a tiny little clip. That's what that's all the attention span people seem to have. I was quite interested that 10% of people who voted Labour in 2024 want reform to cut taxes and reduce government spending. That's odd for a Labour voter.
Well, I mean, it's not that surprising when you go back to that previous graph, and what was it? 25% of Tory voters switched to reform. I mean, Tory voters always want tax reduced. So in a way, some of it's standard right-wing politics. Reduce tax. That is a policy. That's not just political rhetoric. But some of it is a lot more just emotional based, and I think that's such a scary move. And what enables it? Social media. And who makes money from social media? Half a dozen people in this world.
Billionaires,
Billionaires.
Now, there is some good news coming, or some positive information.
Oh, okay, good. Carry on then.
Some of the reasons people have given us for why they do not intend to vote Reform UK at the elections. Number 1, they are racist and generally bigoted.
Hear, hear.
And this blue column, it's quite a small column, but that's people who considered voting Reform, but at the end of the day didn't. So these, you could say these are quite persuasive reasons, perhaps. Number 2, second biggest one, they don't like Nigel Farage. Third biggest one, I do not trust them to run public services competently.
Oh, well, they've got their head screwed on right then.
They have, but that's such an opportunity, though, for the likes of Scottish Government or whoever's messaging for them to let's keep an eye on what happens in the reform-run councils in England, because I don't believe it's going to be pretty. And that could actually increase that sentiment quite a lot. They are too focused on the issue of immigration is number 4. Ties in with number 1, I would say.
I'm completely with them. These were all my reasons for not voting Reform. Not that ever.
Number 5, they're too sympathetic to Donald Trump. Well,
in other words, in his pocket. Well, I think Nigel Farage is in his pocket,
and scribbling down his every word. Then it goes, they are divisive, I don't trust them to keep their promises, too many broken promises. Their views on the NHS is 16%. Well, I would have thought that was even higher. Maybe they thought they would privatise it. Their views on climate change and net zero, then 12% said don't know. That's right in the middle. They don't know why they wouldn't do it. And then you get into, funny. Well, it's not clear enough what they would do differently if they won. They don't think they're radical enough. That's a reason for not voting. That's a surprising one. Here's another one. They're too sympathetic to Vladimir Putin, said 12% of people. Malcolm Offord is not a strong or credible leader. Only 12% of people think that needs to come up. And I think
that's true actually. Well, maybe that'll once he gets going in Holyrood and shows himself to be the twit he is, that'll maybe come up a bit. But it's interesting that you've got this, right wing, almost fascist pending party, and one of their criticisms is that they're too sympathetic, or they're too close to Russia and Putin, because it used to be that was the criticism of left-wing parties, that they were too close,
bloody communists,
to the Soviet Union. And so, God, it just shows you how things
Shows how
have
things
turned on their
change.
head in
Yeah.
our voting lifetime.
9% think they're just not Scottish enough. Well, that's a good thing, I think.
Well, that's a really good thing, I think. They're
Yeah.
not Scottish enough, and they need to carry on not being Scottish enough.
But the biggest one on this, I mean, this is not really comforting. The blue column, the biggest one right down at the bottom, 22% didn't vote Reform. They considered voting them that didn't, because they thought that they wouldn't win in their area, so it was a wasted vote. So that suggests that if they'd had more confidence in them winning, they would have done even more.
Yeah.
So that made me feel a bit better.
Stuff.
There's ammunition there to launch a counter offensive, if you like.
Yes, and I mean, thinking about our conversation with Liam, because one of the things we did, three of us were all kind of saying is much the same thing, was about how SNP really needs to be better at messaging. I mean, he was very strong on that, actually, and and you and I have talked about that on other podcasts. So this could provide a focus for getting a really good message across, if only the SNP would do it, but they're not. Maybe it's down to us to do it, but they're not very good at messaging, and yet look at the data there is here.
Exactly.
Well, hopefully someone in an office somewhere in Butte House or elsewhere is.
So what we do have, and again, this is why I question who's in this sample, because this is the yes-no split. Well, let's just look at the all voters then. If there were a referendum tomorrow on our constitutional future, how would you vote? Should Scotland be an independent country? Yes, 40%, no, 45%. That's disappointing.
Well, we also need to know if they'd sort it out by how they voted in 2014. YouGov still tend to do that. Yeah,
they do. And that's the unknown question.
I can't quite see it on the screen, but you can. So tell me, what sort of proportion of Tories, Labour, Lib Dems would support independence?
All voters, this says 40%. 2% of those are Tory, people who voted Tory, this Scottish Parliament, 2% of them would vote yes. 18% of Labour voters. That's quite high.
Oh, quite high, yeah.
But not as high as 23% of Lib Dems. Yeah. That is quite high. Surprisingly to me, only 84% of SNP voters said that. You'd like to think that was higher. 11% of Reform voters would vote yes. 56% of Greens would vote yes. Yeah. The Greens don't appear in a lot of the data we've looked at. I think possibly if they've gone by the constituency vote, maybe in some of the questions are not in there. Now, Labour switchers, so people who voted Labour in 2024 and SNP in 2026, 68%.
Okay, again, but that's, as you've kept saying, they were probably SNP voters in the first place.
Yeah. And people who voted Labour and Reform or Conservative this time round, 6% of them would vote yes. So that's possibly
that does make sense. Yeah, that makes sense. But it is sort of encouraging that there's those numbers in Labour Party and Lib Dems in particular. I mean, Greens, we would take that as read because they're one of their headline policies. But I mean, that's encouraging.
It is, and maybe we might be able to find the data tables. YouGov often publish their data tables, and we can see just what is in that, what has made up that sample.
Yeah. We hope that you enjoyed that as much as we did, and it's provided some food for thought. I mean, as you said at the beginning, Fiona, there's so much detailed information about what is it that makes people vote the way that they do, and it'll never be tied down completely. Obviously, no one's thinking that, but there are obvious patterns in there and things that just influence people and kind of get them to kind of lean one way rather than the other way. And surely that's the kind of detailed information that any political party in Scotland could be looking at, but particularly the SNP and the Greens. Let's hope that we've helped kind of get that information a bit more widely known.
Absolutely. We'll put the link to the full survey that Persuasion UK did. It's on their website. We'll put the link in the notes because it might be interesting to go and have a look through England, Wales, Northern Ireland's results. We haven't had time to do that. We've just concentrated on the Scottish ones, but it's the data is all there, so it might be interesting to compare at some point. So that has satisfied our geeky desire for a good graph for a little while.
Yeah, because I mean, if you follow our podcast, we both like a good graph.
We do like a good graph.
There's a lot of good ones in that one. Yeah. Great.
Okay, so we will be back, and we're still working out what's going to happen for the rest of June. We will be back with some kind of what's on for the rest of June once we get things.
Hopefully, we'll manage that before the end of June. So that's good.
That'll be good because we're busy in June.
We are. We've got a particular event happening in June that we'll tell you about once we get closer to it.
We will. So thanks for watching, everybody. Catch you later.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to make sure you're following us and subscribe to us, then you get notified every time we put something new out, so you don't miss anything. That would be great. Also, you can click the little bell if you're watching on YouTube.
And sign up for our mailing list. You can do that from the website, and we always send one out at the beginning of each month to tell you what's happening. Last but not least, you can buy us a coffee on coffee.com.